All right, welcome everybody to our fourth episode in Empowering Educators. Today we're going to be talking about overcoming some challenges as instructional coaches, some of the tools that we use. If you are watching our podcast, we would love for you to like it, to add comments. We do want it to be a collaborative space. Kacey and I both are lifelong learners, and so some of the tips that we use and talk about, if you use them and found successful, add that comment. Also, if you have tips that we haven't talked about, drop that in there. We'd love to take a look at those as well. So again, we're coming from Bernie High School in the Hill Country in Texas. And so we want to kind of just jump in on some challenges that we've experienced over our years and really focusing on what we do as being aware of challenges and how to overcome those.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please like and subscribe, as Chad said. Leave us some comments. We'd love that. Let's jump right in. I guess, one of the first things I think as a coach when you're starting. So I started coaching, this is my fourth year. I know you've been coaching a bit longer than that. I think one of the biggest challenges, so I moved from a high school to an intermediate school to start with, and I went to a place where I was in the same district, but I didn't know all the teachers. So when you first go in, and then now this is my first year at Bernie High School, right? So when you first go into a place as a new coach, I think one of the biggest challenges is building those relationships with teachers, kind of earning that trust as well, and to speak to the relationship piece, you come in and nobody knows you. They don't know your background. They don't know what you've done, if you have any kind of credibility, any kind of, you're just some new Joe Schmo kind of off the street, and you have to sort of earn your keep or show that you can do that. And I think one of the challenges too for me is you come into a place and you need to have this professional side, but balance that with like who you are as a person, and it's like those don't always mesh. So that's a challenge, and then the trust piece and all of that. I think it's interesting when you come in somewhere and have to do that.
Yeah, that is a good point. This is my third campus district as an instructional coach. And I was very fortunate when I started. I'll give a shout out to my Garner Middle School instructional coaches. I learned from three of the best, and it's kind of picked and choose from what they were doing that I found useful. Yeah. But then, knowing that relationship, that trust piece, you've got to build that, and like you said, to have the credibility, because nobody cares what you've done, where you've been, until they know how you're going to support them where they are. Right,
exactly. And so it really is starting, and I think it's just being present initially, like I'm here to support you, how can I help, not trying to do too much or push too hard at first, because you don't want people or teachers to think you're just trying to insert yourself into and do all, it's a really delicate balance, and like having to be present, be supportive, do the thing, and slowly those things happen, I feel incredibly fortunate in both of the schools that I've coached at, and I've only been here, this is week 10, but the teachers in both schools have just been outstanding and phenomenal and very welcoming. I have felt a lot of love from the teachers, and so that helps, because there are schools where teachers aren't as supportive and aren't as willing to engage with coaching. So that's been huge as well.
Yeah. No, that's true. I know you definitely get that side eye. Like, what are you here for?
Do you have an ulterior motive?
Yeah, right. Are you, the go-between? Are you reporting to the admin? Right. And that's not it at all. Yeah. And we were talking about this actually last week at our instructional coach PD at the district office, where we genuinely want students to succeed, and for students to succeed, that means teachers succeed. And so we genuinely want to support teachers for what they see as the main struggle with their students, and then how are we going to navigate that. And so I think when teachers, they recognize that you're genuine.
Yes.
And
and there to help them, like truly, that your motives are
your partners.
Yes, right, yeah.
Your partners
Yeah.
in it. It's a we thing.
Yes.
And we're learning alongside them.
Yes.
So that's it. It's very exciting to watch the growth.
Yeah.
And
It is.
just to the point you were talking about, like visibility, it helps build the trust. So being
Right.
visible, not just in the PLC or the office.
Right.
We're out and about,
Right.
and I know even students will be like, "Hey, Mr. Anderson, you weren't in your normal spot.
Right.
I was in a different spot in the hall.
Yeah.
They'll come find me." And so that does,
Make a difference.
yeah, it makes a difference. Yeah.
It does, and I have to give a shout out to you as well, and to the other coach that I worked with. Both, I've had great experiences in like coming in here, and you having relationships with so many of these teachers has helped also with me. Being able to get to know them better and start, building those relationships of my own as well. So that's been very nice. So kudos to you for really building those relationships with them and having that trust as well. Because I know we work with all of the teachers, so it's great, and that has been nice too, because it's not just you're siloed over here with just your own department. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So also part of building trust is going into the rooms early in the year. One, gets everybody comfortable with being in there,
Right.
realizing why you're in there, but then being a witness to the good.
Yeah.
And so focusing on
Yes.
shouting out. And I know there was a teacher here on campus. It was my first year, and I had gone in, and I was like, oh my gosh, what was happening in the classroom was high rigor. Teacher very relatable to the kids, and so I brought that up in PLC. I had been going to different rooms, and so I highlighted some teachers. She was one particular teacher that I highlighted, and then it was a couple weeks later, and she mentioned that's the first time anyone has ever highlighted what I do in the classroom in a public place.
That's huge.
Yeah, and so I was like, wow, because I see it, I'm going to say it, right? And so I'm always looking for that. And so witnessing the good and then affirming that.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. I mean, and it shows that we're there for the right reasons and we're really trying to do the right thing. And that validation, because as a teacher, so often you don't know if the things you're doing are going unnoticed or if they are. And so to have someone highlight that that really boosts your morale. It makes you feel good, like, okay, I'm doing the right things.
Yeah. Do you feel like teachers oftentimes focus on the negative or what they're doing wrong?
I think teachers in general, educators, we're hard on ourselves because we want to do right by the kids. We want to do what's best. And so, yes, I think teachers very often are, if you ask them to rate themselves, if you ask them, everything is going to be low. And, the lens that they're looking through it's very critical because they want to do better, I think, oftentimes.
Yeah. And showing that growth, look how your students are growing. Yeah. They're not where you want them yet, but like this is October.
Yes.
And look where they are at this point. Yeah. So you're progressing and growing. And so that helps to kind of reset that, build the trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, it's important to point out everyone likes to be told things that are good, things that are doing well. Yeah, that's human nature, I think. Yeah.
So we're using Jim Knight as our main instructional coach with our research. We have basically 3 resources: the impact cycle, better conversations, and instructional coaching. Those are the 3 books that we're using with some of the strategies. And I think maybe kind of wrapping up the trust as a challenge part, we've talked about it before, but it's those partnership principles of Jim Knight, the equality, choice, voice, dialogue, which is really listening on our part. What is the teacher, what are they saying, what's important to them, what do they value right now, and then of course that reflection and partnership with the teacher. But those are some of the key principles that we are, as we work with teachers and as we try to overcome the challenges, that we really focus on. So I know one issue is meeting with teachers,
Mm-hmm.
getting in coaching cycles, is trying to get to what is the actual problem?
Right.
What's going on? So what, in your experience, what are some things that you do to kind of overcome that challenge?
I think, a lot of this goes back to what you just said about the listening piece, right? So when you're talking to a teacher and because sometimes teachers also get overwhelmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things on their plate. There's so many things going on. And so this is this, it may be, I'm struggling with this skill, the students aren't getting this, I can't figure out how to ask questions this way, or, it might be all of the things. So I think the first piece is really listening to what they're saying, and then also listening to what they're not saying. Like, what are the things in there that maybe aren't even coming out? Because you have to focus on there's one thing, right? You can't hit all of these problems at once. So when we hear all of this, it's really, okay, what is the biggest underlying issue? What is the thing that we can focus on that's going to have the biggest impact, right now? So I think that the listening piece, and really first identifying what it is, that's the first piece.
Yeah. Which, again, with Jim and I, these are this is the impact cycle, which is identifying the problem,
Right.
student problem, learn, and then take actions to improve.
From there.
And so one of the biggest ways to help teachers identify the problem is to put them in position to be the decision maker.
Mm-hmm.
So listening, and we practice this with our monthly trainings that we have at central office. We always practice parts of our coaching, and one big piece is that listening. So trying to listen, maybe restate what you're hearing, and then have them rank which issue is the most important, that's going to have the largest impact on the students.
Absolutely.
Then once they get that, okay, now we can start focusing on addressing that issue.
Yes. And going back to the listening piece, because we just did some more of this last week, this is also a challenge in coaching, like really learning how to be an active, good listener and close out the things in your brain that might be, because we all tend to have things spiraling in our brains, right? And as coaches, you really have to learn how to shut those things down. You have to listen without judgment. You have to really give processing time. You can't jump in. You can't, there are a lot of things that go into that as well that I think people don't necessarily think about, when you're really trying to listen and do those things.
Well, that's a great point. I know I had a meeting scheduled with a teacher a few weeks ago on setting goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went in, I asked one of my just initial questions, something similar, how's everything going, just kind of a touch point. First thing the teacher says, there's classroom management issues, she's frustrated, you can see it on her face. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, okay, so we had scheduled this meeting for helping you write your year-long goal. Do you want to do that? Or it sounds like the classroom management is a major issue for you. Do you want to talk about some strategies there? And so she said, well, let's do the goal. Let's set the goal. And then we came right back to what the main thing was. But asking her, what do you want to do? What's the priority? And then we were able to come in and really talk through some strategies. She decided what she wanted to do based on some things she came up with. And it's been it's the structure that was needed to be added there, but it's taken that weight off. But that's in that listening.
It is.
We had this meeting scheduled for this, but the teacher had this concern. So.
But it also goes back to what you said earlier about being the decision maker, letting the teacher be the decision maker. This is what we need, how I need to go about this, right?
Yeah.
So all these things are interconnected.
Yeah, they are. And so I know we're identifying a problem, so this is how do we get to the root of the problem over, getting this challenge. And so one thing is to get a clear picture of reality. Mm-hmm. And so there are some ways. Yep. The number one way to get a clear picture is video.
Yes.
And videoing the portion of the lesson that the teacher is really focused in on. Like when they walk out of here today, I need them to have gotten this skill, mastered this. And so, 5 to 7 minutes for the teacher to reflect. So that goes back to building the trust.
Yep.
So then you and I would only watch that video if the teacher wanted us to. So they're recording that on their phone.
Right.
I've had teachers both ways. Me record it and send it, or they've used their own phone, and then they'll ask.
Yeah.
They'll ask for feedback as well. But that is also us being in the room,
Right.
collecting specific data. So those are some two good ways. But I know, like, if we talk about the video, I know teachers are very reluctant. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's honestly another challenge. You're coaching, like getting teachers to allow themselves to be vulnerable in that space, and because it is hard to watch yourself. It is hard to see the things because again, with that critical eye as well, teachers often are looking at the things that are, and they're not looking necessarily at the things that they're doing very well, So, yes, trying to get them to want to do the video, to see that, to really look and reflect, because that is a challenge as well.
And I always try to pull in, like, we have a lot of teachers that are coaches, and what do coaches spend a lot of their time doing?
Watching film.
Yep. Right?
Absolutely.
They'll either practice games, and so it's the same. The same idea. It's the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So and I know we had a teacher videoed a portion of the class. She was wanting to focus on high-level questioning, and she came up with a strategy she wanted to use. But there was a group of 4 boys that I ended up focusing in on and turning the camera to. She'd asked me to come into video, and their conversation was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that to the teacher afterwards, and she's like, oh my gosh, that must have been the strategy we were doing, because she had been having a hard time getting them engaged in the lessons. But they were using text evidence.
All the things.
Yeah, so it was like, to your point, looking for the good, witness to the good, and then highlighting that and saying, hey, even ones that you may not think are getting it, we're getting it.
Right, and a lot of times if the focus is, I want you to video yourself, I want you to look at all the things you are doing well. I want you to focus on those things because, it's so important. Like, look at the good you're doing.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening in your class that is going well.
Yeah, that is good. So, so the impact cycle, so again, what is the root of the problem? You identify what the problem is with the teacher, and then the next stage in the impact cycle is learn. And so this is where you help that teacher to set a goal, and then Jim Knight really mentions and uses a lot a checklist, establishing checklists for different things. So keeping that checklist small too, like 3 to 5 things, and it could be even in your lesson design, like in the I do, the we do, the you do, like I want to do these 3 things, and the we do these 2 or 3, like, and have the students take ownership of those other areas too, where they can check off that they're accomplishing these things.
Right.
So I know that's very powerful, and it is powerful for a teacher too, to like, I want this skill, I'm going to do this strategy, and then am I able to reach my goal? Am I on the path to reaching the goal?
Right, and again, to focus just on those, this is the goal, I'm using this strategy, and focusing on that one piece. Because again, it can get overwhelming if you're doing too much. So it really is focusing on that one thing to improve upon.
And generally when the teacher identifies like what is the major thing, it's going to touch several other things.
Absolutely.
So they're going to end up getting what they wanted out of multiple things as well.
Absolutely.
But those checklists, it helps provide clarity and focus for the teacher, and also clarity and focus for the students. And so that's very beneficial. And then the final stage in the impact cycle is the improve stage. And I think it's important to note this is student improvement. And in the learn stage, the coach is there with the teacher. We're either partnering in part of the lesson, we're collecting data, we're using several of the different skills that we have to communicate. And so when it comes to the improve stage, you're basically asking, did we reach our goal? All right, and if it's a yes or a no, then based off of that, you start finding your next steps.
Going from there, monitoring, adjusting, moving forward, absolutely.
So, the improve stage can be the most challenging because you're looking at maybe and again, teachers with high standards, right? That mastery level.
Yeah.
So having them determine, okay, what is mastery, and what is now? Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Are you ready for the next step? And
Right.
maybe it's raising the rigor a little bit once they accomplish that goal, and then. If they haven't met their goal, an important question I like to ask is, well, okay, now if we're changing this goal, or we're changing this direction, is it going to mean something to you?
Yes, because that's huge. It's got to mean something to the teacher, and because then it trickles down. I mean, not trickles. It's actively a part of it.
They're invested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So another challenge that we have, just in general, not just to education,
No.
is kind of a fixed mindset.
Yes. So a fixed mindset meaning someone who. So you've got fixed mindsets. You've got growth mindset, right? Growth mindset is somebody who's constantly looking to improve. Fixed mindset is somebody who kind of feels like they've been doing the things and the things have been well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So it's a fixed mindset is definitely a challenge, because as you said, that's just in general in life. In education, things are constantly evolving. We're constantly learning new ways of doing things, new strategies, trying new things. And so fixed mindsets can be really tough when somebody gets into a routine. And we all have done this before, right? We get into a routine, it's comfortable, I've been doing the same thing, it's great, this is how I teach it. I think, one of the ways really to kind of that we try to combat that, and small wins are huge with a fixed mindset, but it's always bringing it back to the students. Well, what do the students need now? How is this impacting the students? Is this what is best for kids? Because if you're doing the same thing you were doing in 1997, it may not be that's best for kids at this point. Our kids are different learners now. I mean, things have evolved, things have changed. We've got to, we talk about meeting teachers where they're at. Teachers have to meet kids where they're at.
Good point. Interesting you say 1997. That's the first year I started teaching.
How about that?
So, yes, I'm a way different educator in 2024 than I was in 1997. I've evolved over the time, and I think that's a great point. Like, I may know my subject matter, I may know what I'm doing, but my kids are changing as they come through. And I'm not going to nerd out on this because I can, but in the medical field, in the legal field, if doctors and lawyers just said, you know what, I'm only going to do this procedure the way, because it's the way we've always done it, more people died than the advanced way. Or court cases that are established to grant more freedom to people, but you know what, I'm only going to go by this law that was passed. So, that's my thing too, but the point, like you said, it's on the students, right? And it's not the teacher.
Right.
Like, this is what I've done. Is it still effective? Okay. What data shows that? Okay. And then, if not, what then can I do again as the teacher, as the decision maker? But it's not pointing, oh, you're doing this wrong. It's how can we make this better? In the medical field, we're saving lives. The legal field, we're keeping people out of prison, and in education, it's powerful. We're setting up the next generation.
Absolutely.
So
and we have to set them up for success, and we have to do things that get them ready and prepared for life after high school. It's critical that we do that, and again, they're different learners now. And the things that we do, they're so accustomed to their attention. So we have to keep them engaged. We have to do things that get them moving and get them, using their hands on, and we always talk about different learning styles, and that also is part of it. If you are just standing at the front of the room lecturing for, 80 minutes, you're gonna lose your kids.
Yeah, you've lost them about 60 minutes. About 10, 15 minutes in, you lose them.
They're gone.
They're done.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, small wins with this, and it is. I think if you have a teacher has a fixed mindset, right? You offer small nuggets of and this strategy. Well, why don't we just try this? And another good thing is for them to see other teachers teaching, right? And they go in we've talked about this before, like learning walks and going to see other teachers is one of the most valuable methods of learning in this industry. I think, it's invaluable. It really, you go in and you see somebody and you think, oh wow, and then oftentimes the teachers will go in and see the students that they have who are behaving differently in this class. Well, why is that? It's because maybe the strategies are different. Yes, it's a different content area, and that could have something to do with it. But a lot of times it's the way that the teachers are interacting with them, or the pace of the classroom. There are a lot of things that can contribute to that. So it is important. And again, if they see a teacher doing something, they think, oh, I like that, maybe I'll try it, and that's a small win, try it, see what happens, even if we're just trying it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and there's some strategies as a teacher. I was the one, I'm going to do this to show that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
oh, right.
Then it ended up working.
You're like,
so now I've got to continue to do this. But I wasn't afraid to try something,
right.
Even if it was, I know this is going to fail, and then it didn't. So I think just being willing, and then of course we have a couple teachers here that frequently come in and they're trying a strategy and it doesn't work how they want. They don't just throw it out; they keep tweaking it to get it to where they want, and the impact of that is now they've got it the way they want.
Yes.
They can use that
and
going forward.
Right,
yeah.
right. We had a teacher recently tell us, I think it was after by the fourth class, it was finally the way that she wanted it,
yes.
right? And she changed it from here, she changed it, and it still wasn't quite, and she tried things, on chart paper, and then she did it digitally, and then she did it, and it was multiple ways, and finally by that fourth class, she was like, this is perfect, I got it, and that's huge. And you bring up a good point, you can't be afraid to fail. Like, it's okay and it's not failure.
No.
It's maybe not what you want it to look like immediately, right? And you have to be okay with that. We want our kids to be okay with that. We want our students to feel like they're in a safe space where they can make a mistake, and then you go, because that's what learning is. And as teachers and educators, we are, as you mentioned before, lifelong learners, or that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to try to help, and so it's okay to take a risk and it not pan out the way that you wanted to immediately. You try again. You tweak it.
Yeah, it's that productive struggle.
Absolutely.
And in this scenario that we're talking about with this teacher was the decision maker.
Yep.
Just to highlight some things we've talked about. And then the teacher found value in the skill from the activity and kept tweaking.
Yes.
So those are two important things. Because if the teacher didn't find value in it, she would have thrown it out and given up.
Yeah.
So just a couple other things that are some challenges as instructional coaches. One is that we do get pulled in many, many directions. And so we have district responsibilities as well as campus responsibilities. And then we're also, we're part of our leadership team and the administrators, in that we basically the voice of the teacher, and we kind of report on the different things we're doing and working with teachers. It's always a positive, a positive thing.
Absolutely.
But maybe, you want to talk a little bit about being pulled in various directions.
Right. So, our primary goal is to be working with teachers and in classrooms and doing those things. And a lot of times that's tough. We do run our PLCs, which are our, teacher-led groups. Did we lose the camera? Or did it take a picture?
We might have lost the camera.
We might have lost the camera. We're going to keep going. Sorry. So we run our PLCs, which are our professional learning communities, which are our teacher teams, right? So that does take up a bit of time. We have multiple PLCs, and each week, every day. 3 days a week, typically. And a lot of the ways that, and I will say, I do appreciate here at Bernie High School, I don't feel like we're pulled as much by admin. Like admin really is able to kind of let us do our thing, and they know and value. And it's not that I wasn't valued in my other school, but it was smaller. It was just kind of a different. But really using like our Outlook calendar is like it's a savior. I mean, if I don't. As a teacher, I didn't use it as much as, it was just kind of, oh, something popped up. This is my lifeline. Like if I don't have it on there, it's just gone. So it's, and calendaring even time to get into classrooms or, when they're not scheduled, those types of things.
Yeah, no, I use the calendar as well. I color coordinate by department. It's full almost every single day. I also use a Google form that helps track who I'm with and which department, and I've used that in the past to, I'm spending more time with one department than another, so then it helps me to rearrange my schedule, or what type of coaching am I doing? Am I doing soft coaching, or am I doing in a coaching cycle, really working with teachers? And that's definitely what we want to prioritize. And then I think that kind of leads into like the impact of an instructional coach. And as a teacher, you can, with the kids, like you feel like you have an impact, you can see it. And sometimes as an instructional coach, well, you want to still have that impact.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I will say my first year as an instructional coach, coming right out of the classroom, there were a lot. I mean, it took me a while before I was like, what did I do? Because you miss that. Like as a teacher, you're constantly building relationships with kids. You're constantly watching them grow, not only as a student, but as a human, and you see them, and then in high school, you watch them go and graduate and see them go do amazing things, and when you're a coach, you're learning how to navigate. Now all of a sudden you're just working with adults. We still work with kids. That's not, but it's not the same, right? And you don't get to know the kids on the same level. So it's challenging because you think, man, I'm doing all this stuff, but you don't know if it's having any impact. You don't know if the teachers are taking it in, if they're soaking it up. And sometimes not until, a year or two later, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, this is really paying off. And the super cool thing about that, and we've talked about, is as a coach, when you're working with one teacher, you're impacting those 150, 160 kids, right? And then now, so you're working with how many teachers? That's 160 kids, all of these. But then it's year after year after year. So your impact really is greater as a coach, but you don't necessarily reap the immediate benefits of that.
Yeah, no, the best thing is getting the feedback, hey, that strategy you presented, even at the district level, not just at Bernie High School, the teachers that come up, hey, I'm still using the strategy. And Jim Knight in his evaluating instructional coaching says that you transcend that 1 year of impact, because again, it's not just that 150, 160. With that teacher, it's going to be the next 150 the next year, and the next 150 after that. I think these are some challenges that we've faced. These are ways that we've tried to overcome those, and I think maybe the key thing here is not being the problem solver, letting that teacher be the problem solver, be a soundboard.
The decision maker.
So
and that it is tough. I will say again, when you first start coaching, and I think that this you get into this, but again, when you're a teacher and a teacher comes to you and you're talking, you want to be like, oh, we'll try this. Oh, we'll do this. Oh, well, and when you step into that coaching role, that's not your role anymore. You don't just try to offer, a solution. It's really trying to, as you said, work as a partner with that teacher and help them find the solution that's going to work best for them.
Yeah, so you respond to a question with a question. They'll ask you, how would you, and then you start asking questions. And based on how they respond, you ask other questions. And you put them in that decision-making role. But that takes practice. It does. It takes practice.
And it goes back to that listening piece. You have to listen for what they're asking. What is it, and what is it they're really trying to get to?
All right.
Okay.
Well,
great talk, Chad.
It was good.
All right. Well, I don't know which one to look at because I don't know if we lost the camera. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll look at all three. We'll be back in a couple weeks with episode 5. Y'all have a good one.